What is up, my dudes? Welcome back to the Steel to Stone channel. So today we're going to be talking about the Benchmade Mini Adamas and some complaints I've heard about this out of the box, and basically the fact that they use this really good steel that's known for its edge stability and toughness, but they ground the knives pretty thick behind the edge. Not terribly thick, I don't think. Not much different than a Shaman or, even a lot of the Para 3s that you see have fairly similar geometry, but this one does get thick up towards the tip. It's got that, gray Cerakote finish that's pretty textured, and it just doesn't really cut all that well, especially with the way that Benchmade grinds their knives at the factory. It's a really coarse finish. Tends to hang up on material a lot more so than some of the other factory edges that you see. And it just doesn't cut that well. Even, comparing these two knives, the F5.5, which is a very thick blade, and the Shaman, which is pretty thick behind the edge as well, and a thick blade, both of these knives cut much better at lower angles behind the edge. And I wanted to see how this holds up in comparison to the Z-Wear impact resistance test that I did, knowing that this knife is at the same hardness, about 64 HRC, a little over that, as well as, this knife is sharpened from the factory between 20 and 22 degrees per side, depending on where you measure it. The angle increases as it gets towards the tip, and then the Shaman is sharpened at 17 degrees per side. So if you guys saw my impact resistance comparison between K390 and Z-Wear, the Z-Wear took a good little bit of damage. I don't think it did bad, but it definitely didn't do as good as K390 did, even with thinner blade geometry and edge geometry on the K390. So I actually accidentally hit this Cruwear-quick. I hit the edge up against a metal surface plate the other day on accident, and it didn't do anything to it. And I was like, oh, that geometry, the fact that it's at a steeper angle, really makes a good little bit of difference. So I wanted to take this factory edge and do the same test I did with the Shaman and see how it does in comparison. So actually I think I did 6 cuts on that wire, and it caused absolutely 0 damage. So we'll do 5 hits up against the aluminum block as well as the copper block. And I did the aluminum up around the belly where it's a little bit steeper angle, just to see what would happen with that, and nothing. Didn't cause any damage at all that I could see. I was like, damn. And then yeah, so you can see here it still perfectly cleanly slices the paper. There's no damage that I can visibly see with the naked eye. And yeah, so that's pretty impressive, especially with a factory edge. Excuse me. And then we'll move on here to the copper block. Do the same thing, but I'm going to do it down here on the flat where it's a little lower angle. It's at 20 degrees per side right here, so we'll see how that holds up to the copper. And looking at it initially, I thought there was some damage, but it was just like, I guess, a reflection where it sort of cleaned the edge going through the copper there. I took it out from underneath my camera and looked at it and slicing the paper. Still perfectly cleanly slices the paper. No damage that I could visibly see just looking at it, again with the naked eye. But yeah, that's pretty impressive. So especially with a factory edge, that impresses me much more, because I've noticed testing factory edges like this, I normally don't like to do it anymore because they just don't normally hold up very well. But I thought, given the experience I had accidentally hitting this up against a piece of steel the other day and it not causing any damage to it, I thought, well, this might be a good one to actually test the factory edge. And the fact that it held up as good as it did really impresses me, because it's only going to get better after you sharpen it. So the fact that it could withstand that and literally take no damage that I could see or feel or notice any sharpness difference just means that this being sharpened at 20 degrees per side to 22 degrees, it's going to hold up extremely well to hard use tasks. And this is a purpose built design, you know. Everything that they did with this was meant for this knife to be able to hold up to things like this, to you using it hard, accidentally hitting it up against things, and it being able to withstand that and not take any damage. That's why they chose the Cruwear blade. That's why they chose the geometry behind the edge that they chose, and the blade thickness, and even down to the sharpened angle. I believe they chose all that so that this would withstand things like this, and I think that they did a good job with that. And you can always lower this angle if you want it to cut better. So thanks for watching, guys.